Good morning and welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living in Redding, California. It's a wonderful day to be here for this online service. And to get started, we're going to have a wonderful song by Dalton and Judy.
Good morning, everybody. I know it's been 2021 for a couple of days now, but I hope it's not too late to justify singing this song. Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot in the days of old lang syne? For old lang syne, my dears, for old lang syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for the sake of old lang syne. For old lang syne, my dear, for old lang syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for the sake of old lang syne. We'll take a cup of kindness yet for the sake of old lang syne.
That's great. Thank you, Dalton and Judy. And Happy New Year, everybody. So here we are, 2021. We have a new global theme for the Centers for Spiritual Living. It's Timeless Wisdom and Evolutionary Vision. And that'll be the theme of today's talk from Reverend Sue. I'm Charlie Bourne, one of the practitioners, prayer partners here at the center. And we invite you to participate every Sunday. We also have Zoom classes throughout the week and other opportunities to keep active within our community. So at this point, I'd like to thank our sound team, which is Lindy Miller Castro back there doing solo. She's doing a wonderful job. And we have our ushers here supporting us and manning the doors. And then we have Dalton and Judy. And then we have Reverend Sue. So I'd like to go into a few announcements coming up. So we have our continuation with Lunch with Ernest Holmes with Reverend Sue MillerBorn. It's every Tuesday from 11:30 to 12:30, and it's online via Zoom. So if anyone's welcome to join and to participate in this in-depth study of the Science of Mind textbook. It's a very vibrant, enjoyable session, and people show up every week, and it's a good way to stay in contact with the community as well. And then we have two classes coming up, which Reverend Sue may speak to you a little bit later in her talk. We have Breaking Habits. It's a class with Reverend Sue MillerBorn, Wednesdays, January 6th through February 24th, 7 to 8:30 p.m. online via Zoom. It's an 8-week class. They'll be using the powerful insights of Dr. Joe Dispenza from his book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. So you can contact Sue for that class or the office. And then we have the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success with Reverend Sue on Thursdays, January 7th, starting January 7th, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. via Zoom. So this 8-week class launches us into the new year with learning tools of success presented by Deepak Chopra in his book, The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. So you can contact Sue or the office for that. And then we have a SOAR, which is our Spirit of Adventure Renewed, picking up again in 2021. There's a planning meeting on Saturday, January 9th at 10 a.m. online via Zoom. So contact Cher Matthews for the Zoom invitation. And then also we're accepting new board member applications for the center's Board of Trustees. So the requirements are you have to be a member of the center and have 1 year of classes, or at least 2 Science of Mind classes. So it's a very worthwhile, rewarding activity. I did it for about 9 years. And I can tell you it's very rewarding to be part of that process that oversees the finances of the center and helps make decisions in a group process and spiritually minded process towards the well-being and the future of the center. So if you're interested, you can get an application online, or you can call the office and get one mailed to you. And last but not least, there's one more announcement. It is, we have this Wednesday morning midweek Zoom call. It's at 10 a.m. And it's just a check-in. So anybody who wants to join in, there's a discussion about Sunday's talk, as well as what's going on in your life, or anything you want to bring up. But it's a way of staying in contact with the community during this time. So with that, I'm going to go into today's reading, which is about the global theme that I mentioned. And following that will be the sound of the bell, and then a prayer, and then we'll have our message by Reverend Sue. So as I mentioned, the 2021 global theme for all the Centers for Spiritual Living is Timeless Wisdom, Evolutionary Vision. And the context for that topic is this. The fundamental principles of science of mind are ageless and cross many spiritual traditions. We know this is true, and we know that in our practice we are tapping into the infinite, eternal, which is God and has always been. We have the opportunity to continue evolving and expanding our vision, continually growing into something newer and bigger instead of stagnating. And regarding the global vision, we see a world in which every person lives in alignment with their highest spiritual principle, emphasizing unity with God and connection with each other, a world in which individually and collectively we are called to a higher state of consciousness and action. And regarding timeless wisdom, we believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul, forever and ever expanding. Please join with me in knowing that as we recognize and feel the presence of God, the presence of Spirit that's everywhere present, we know that that flows through each and every one of us individually and expressed in the most beautiful individual way. I know for myself, as I know for each one listening, that there is a deep urge, a deep nudge, deep within my soul that pushes me to want to grow more and to know more and to be in connection with others. And so as I allow that deepening to connect and take hold in a much, much deeper way, I relax. And I know that as long as I strive to push forward and to expand my view, which I know is true for each and every one of us here, that we grow in our ability to accept and to understand and to help build a world that works for all. So I do this with love, and I do this with respect, and I do this with the acknowledgement that we're all trying to do our best. The best for survival, the best for peace, and the best for hope. So I do know that there is a world that works for all, and I am part of that. So today I open my eyes and I open my heart and my ears to the wisdom and the words of Reverend Sue as she shares her deep, deep spiritual understanding and connection with the One. So I give thanks for today's talk, for all those here today and all those listening. And with grace and the abundance of gratitude, I release these words into law, knowing full well it is so. And together we say, and so it is. Reverend Sue.
Good morning. Thank you for singing for Old Lang Syne. I was asleep at 9:30, so I appreciate getting to hear that. I love that song. Such a tradition. And Happy New Year to everyone joining us in this precious moment together. As Charlie was explaining to you, the little bit of the thoughts behind the theme for Centers for Spiritual Living this year, Timeless Wisdom, Evolutionary Vision, opens up a whole array of ideas and topics that we can dive in deeper. I'm going to start, though, with a quote from Ephesians 3:20. There is a power at work within us that is able to accomplish abundantly far more than we can ask or imagine. Sounds just like a quote right out of the Science of Mind textbook. A power at work within us that is able to accomplish so much more than all we can ask for or imagine. And what that takes, and something we're going to speak to today, is spiritual humility. Now, to begin, I want to share a story that Charlie sent to me. One of my favorite things to do on the nightly news is to wait till the very end where they honor the life of someone that has passed because of COVID. And I always appreciate that connection to the story of their life. So it's just not a number, but it's a story and a profile, and it makes me remember the humanity behind this whole experience that we're all going through. So this story was a story that was found in the LA Times, and it was written by Kevin Baxter. So as I read it to you, I'm going to pause along the way. I want you to think in the back of your mind that the theme here that we have, the timeless wisdom and the evolutionary vision. See how that shows up in this story. This is the story. Dr. William Good, who battled Nazis in Poland, dies of COVID. So in 1943, his name was Wojciech Good, a Jewish teen. He has already escaped execution 3 times, and he had a chance to avenge his loved ones who were killed in the Holocaust. He was born in Minsk, Poland, but grew up outside Vilna, Poland, a city that was claimed by 3 other countries during World War II. Shortly after the German invasion of the Soviet Union, he was captured and taken to the notorious Paneri killing ground, where the bullet meant for him had just missed. He survived only by falling into the pit and feigned his death among the corpses. There were other close calls during the war, and much of his time was spent hiding in the forest with his father, and occasionally he joined the resistance in sabotaging the Nazi rail lines and surviving thanks to the bravery of local families. Now, few knew of his story until recently he was profiled in the LA Times. Now, here's the part that was very, very touching and life-changing. He ordered 2 Lithuanian policemen to kneel at gunpoint in a desolate swamp. The policemen were the same unit that had 2 years earlier gunned down his mother and brother, but as Good raised his pistol, his hand began to tremble. He had already seen too much death. He would explain years later that he couldn't add to it. he lowered his gun and walked away. Now, there's an interesting point here. In the Sufi tradition, there is this knowing of the divine moving through you, awakening you through the process of a tremble. So it is a felt sense. And when we are in tune with that, whether we understand it or not, there is something in the soul of each one of us, in that tremble, that is longing to make a change, make a shift, make itself known. And so he allowed himself to lower his gun and walk away. Now, Good would survive the war, and he later studied medicine in Italy and eventually immigrated to the United States, and he changed his name to William Z. Good. But he never forgot that day in the swamp. When, and I love this part, here it is, the evolutionary idea unfolding by choosing humanity over revenge. By choosing humanity over revenge, he took the first steps on a path that would end up touching tens of thousands of lives. Now, Good had died recently in an Azusa senior care community at 96 years old because of complications from COVID. He himself ran a very quiet medical practice in La Puente. It's a blue-collar melting pot of culture where the doctors really appreciated him being there because he knew 11 different languages. He was invaluable in service to others. His altruism spoke for him. For more than 5 decades, everyone received the same treatment, whether they could pay or not, and many couldn't. A nurse that worked with him for 45 years said that she often spent time on holidays and summers and always witnessed his unending kindness and generosity, both his time and financially, to every single patient that crossed his path. Everyone got his full attention. He was reported to be an extraordinarily kind and had a beautiful sense of humor. Now, speaking of himself, Good says he never killed anyone. Something that had shamed him during the war, but later, when he had children of his own, evolutionary, it became a point of pride. In his words, "We did not kill, they killed our children, so we have nothing to hide." I will tell you, most people are very angry. Look what they did to us. They were bitter. Look what they did to us. I'm angry at you. It's eating at me. You don't even know that I'm angry at you, as these nameless faces of the opposition would pass these people. He decided that anger was a dead emotion at that time, and he knew he needed to get rid of it. So he did. That early in life, he had that revelation, that spiritual revelation that came only at a soul level, that guided and was an instrument in the rest of his life. He was survived by his wife of 67 years, Pearl, 91 years old, 3 children, all who became doctors, and so many grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and several of those are doctors as well. So he found his way by being spiritually humble to a greater truth, Now, Ernest Holmes reminds us of this sometimes in his later writings. When you look at the Science of Mind text, it's very mental, very heavy. There's pieces of it that if you pause long enough, it'll awaken inside of you a greater understanding of what he's pointing to. But the Sermon by the Sea, which was very popular, it was right at Asilomar. That's why so many years people have gone to conferences at Asilomar, and they love to go into the temple where he did this sermon. But this one section, he says, I would desire that in our teaching there should never be any arrogance, for it always indicates spiritual immaturity to me. Others will arise who will know more than we do. They won't be better, they won't be worse, they will be different and know more than we do. Evolution is forward. Now, the emphasis today is to remember a very central key concept in our spiritual evolution, connected to the timeless wisdom that we share from all the different faith paths. And that is the practice, as I come back to it, spiritual humility. If we get so full of ourselves and suddenly start hearing our conversations being filled with an echo of complaining too much about what others are doing or not doing, where we begin to compare our way to their ways, we need to quiver, we need to pause, we need to take a moment. And believe it or not, 2020 threw us on course, not off course. It threw us on course. It had a way, the different ways we dealt with some of the political differences, the COVID experience, mask or no mask, whether we dealt with some of the racial profiling, how we felt by all of that, all of the different upsets that were continually to show up in our news feeds. It had a way of revealing to each and every one of us, without a doubt, where our personal work, our spiritual personal work is. Beyond the spiritual activism being called for, it also said to take a pause, each one of us individually, and look more deeply. Now, I had a conversation just very recently with a very sincere student of this teaching, and she admitted she has been loyal to the science of mind philosophy, but the challenges of this last year have touched every last ounce of her spiritual effort, and for her to force herself to remain in touch, very honest evaluation of who we are in all of this. And she said, but I continue to live the principles. And though there's the grumpiness that comes and the complaining that comes, we turn to the principles, to the timeless wisdom, and they pull her back time and again to her true center. But she says sometimes that grasp is getting further and further away. I could totally relate to that. Another friend shared in a note she sent me over the holidays that she had a son that committed suicide several years ago. But even though she's remained steadfast on her spiritual journey, she said suddenly she just felt the urge to do her spiritual writing again. It finally came back to her again, and she could feel it just channeling through her. Again, that spiritual quiver. There's something more here, and she was able to define it, that deep thread of the timeless and sacred wisdom never went far from her consciousness, but now she is evolving once again, and she's using the tools of truth to guide her, to inspire her. Now there's some other parts of this Sermon by the Sea I want to share. Find me, this is Ernest Holmes, find me one person who can get his own littleness out of the way, and he shall reveal to me the immeasurable magnitude of universe in which I live. The information that I share with you comes from a group thought process from a panel of CSL ministers, practitioners, and council. And they present these ideas for us to contemplate and to share. So find me one person who no longer doubts, no longer wavers, not one with a proclamation of superiority who says, look at me, I have arrived, I am the one. No, I will not listen to that. Only that which reveals to me, to myself, can a message mean anything to me. Only that which gives me back to myself can save me. Only that which leads me to the God within myself can reveal God. For those people that have come to me so discouraged by the continual divide that they witness, especially around Reading, I find myself for understanding in such a deep way that principle that we won't change until something stirs and touches us personally. Otherwise, it's a lot of wah, 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 wah talk, and we're not getting it. We're just not getting it until it personally touches the very heartstrings of our own being. Does the door of the heart open and allow this timeless wisdom to be made manifest and to stir within us a greater idea of who we are and how we are to be in this world? And so that takes the spiritual humility to drop to our knees and to recognize what is being asked of us here. And only that person can do it to whom the vision has come through their own efforts. You see, the vision has to come from within each and every one of us. This cannot be a dictate that I say to you, you must meditate every day, you must do your visioning every day and do your prayer work every day. No, it has to come from that stirring, from that quiver within you that says, now I sit with the one, with that one love. This grace of the God then abounds by divine givingness. So we look today at spiritual humility, not spiritual arrogance. We're called inward. We're called inward as we honor and try to live in an awareness of these greater ideas unfolding, and we learn to embody the wisdom of our true teachers that are influencing our way. We open where we feel shut down, contracted, constricted, sorrowful, depressed, angry, complaining. We open to that greater idea, longing to be expressed in each and every one of us, to find that world that works for all. This is the actual process of visioning as we open to that and we vision in our own way ourselves in 2021. We get out of our own way to allow something more to emerge or evolve through us. Now, who are your teachers? Who are your teachers? It's important for you to discern that. And are you still hungry now for spiritual sacred study? Ask yourself. Have you been slothful in a way that you've just been taking too much time, just allowing yourself to be fed by news? Have you allowed yourself to follow the wisdom of the higher teachings to lift you up? We gain confidence in this way, yet remain open to know more. Listen to that divine conversation going on from within the heart to continue to steer us forward. Again, from the Sermon of the Sea, evolution is proof of an irresistible urge which pushes everything onward and upward. From the Beatitudes, blessed are the meek, blessed are the meek. Now that idea, this Emmett Fox expands on this and relays it back from the biblical resource. This idea of meekness is a mental attitude, actually, of open-mindedness, faith in God, something greater, and the realization that the will of the divine for us is always something joyous, interesting, and vital, and much better than anything we could think of for ourselves. That includes a perfect willingness to allow the will of the divine to come about in whatever way this divine wisdom considers it to be the best, rather than a way that we stubbornly have been choosing for ourselves. When we become fully aware of ourselves, we allow ourselves to have that door of the heart open. There's a light there that reveals a deeper source. But if we keep that space shut down, too full of ourselves, too full of what we think we know, then we don't allow very much space for the divine to flow through us as the instrument of truth, and we're not available. So the door of our heart is closed, and the access to this humility, which should be center stage, is suddenly abandoned. Now, in one of the stories that a rabbi spoke to about this, I loved the way he said this. Full of myself, I have no room for God. Worse still, as long as I harbor even a shred of egoism, my will remains tainted and largely unavailable. I put my pseudo-self in the place that rightfully belongs to the divine, ascribing everything to myself. This basic truth places humility at the essential center of the spiritual path. Because we fill our sacred emptiness with self-centeredness, egoism, and arrogance, we cannot work directly to develop that humble heart. So to pray, to approach humility from above, we pray that we feel our utter dependence on other people and on God. And to look around yourself and to have gratitude for all the things that you see around you. Now this idea was, why was the door so low to enter this kingdom, was one of the storylines. It's because you need to kneel down in order to enter this divine path. Be humble enough to remember when you need to drop to your knees. To allow yourself to pray for the mercy and the grace and the beautiful qualities that enrich the spiritual journey along the way. So the book that I just finished with a group of people, The Divine Hero, speaks, Sri Srimnoy speaks with this ending little poem as he described the journey of a master and his wealth versus a humble hermit along the path. But I won't go into the story, but they're talking about both being equal. This lesson, he says, this is at the end of his story, he said, "You do not owe me anything one to the other. You have given me the real illumination, always for everything. For everything we go to the one. For everything we go to the one. To cure my disease, I am going to God. You have everything, the rich man, but you still need more things from God for your fulfillment. In my case, I have been praying for so many years, and I should have realized this, but this lesson I got from you. So you do not owe me anything. I helped you, true, but now you have illumined me, so we are equal." When we take that time to recognize that we are indeed learning always from one another, each story is shared from that heart space. So here is Sri Srimnoy's beautiful poem that ends this story. "Someone infinitely wiser than you is waiting at your mind's door. Someone infinitely purer than you is waiting at your heart's door. Someone infinitely more self-giving than you is waiting at your life's door. Welcome him. Give him the opportunity to do everything through you. Needless to say, he will do everything for you with the utmost joy." So refreshing, so inspiring. The ideas in spiritual humility, these questions are posed to you for your contemplation this week. And if I can find them quick enough here. Here's the questions. What occupies my core? Who is the agent in all my actions? Who and what is at the center of my personality? Is it me? My ego? Am I separate from others? There's an ordinary way of life, our basic assumption about ourselves and how we've learned to view ourselves in the world. But can you open your center to an inherent emptiness? To the creative emptiness that makes room for the higher to enter? Can you see the falsity of placing everything in relation to your supposed self? Can you enter the essential action of the true prayer of giving your innermost place, your very will, over to some sacred source? Can you do that? In that way, this true humility is growing in you. What a beautiful way to launch into your new year, to recognize that you are the spiritual warrior. You stand on the shoulders of great wisdom, great guidance, and you wait for the quiver of the soul, the stirring of your heart, to move forward. So I'm going to invite Judy to play as we go into a spiritual practice together. And then I'll end it with a prayer that blesses this message together with all of us. And this is a Tonglen practice. Thinking about Tonglen practice, we breathe in the suffering. We breathe out the grace, the understanding, the evolution of what is. We breathe in, we breathe out. So I invite you in the still place, in the holy place where you sit upon now, close your eyes and breathe in the disappointment, the frustration of disturbances to your routines, to your plans, to your aspirations. Breathe it all in. Breathe out patience, courage, adequacy, and peace. Transform it with every breath. Breathe in the loneliness, the sadness of the days you have spent in isolation without human touch. Breathe it in, feel it for what it is, but breathe out deep connection and community. We are right here. Breathe and remember. Breathing in the brokenness of our social order and the cruelty that dehumanizes the most vulnerable among us. Breathe out dignity, compassion, and a burning desire for justice. Breathe in all the worry, the fear, and the confusion growing in these times of anxiety, these times of not knowing. Breathe it in. But breathe out calm, energy, trust in a greater good unfolding. Breathe that out. Transform what is. Finally, breathe in the desires of good people everywhere, seeking alternative ways to serve and to love. Breathe that in, that alternative way to serve and to love, and breathe out creativity, confidence in God's gracious abiding. Those words relate to the Tonglen practice presented by Reverend Kathy Bazzuti Jones from an interfaith practice. I embellish upon the prayer to remind ourselves our oneness with what is. And what is this divinity, this great mind, this love, this deep knowing where our faith reaches into and lays its head upon the lap of the one that knows. The greatest gift to give to yourself when you don't know, when you're caught in the confusion, the dilemma, the suffering of your own mind, your own heart restricted. Lay down your head upon the lap of the one that knows. And be humble enough to say, I do not know here. I do not know my way here. But God knows. And I lean into that with great faith, with great confidence, that love prevails, that love guides me, restores me, centers me. And I drop to my knees in a demonstration of a willingness to allow this flow to move through me, to transform all that is by the very breath I breathe. I transform my thoughts. I lift my heart. The doors of my heart are wide open to the divinity, to the truth, to the power, to the love. And we each find our way to express that in 2021. We are empowered by what we learned in 2020, and we boldly rise up, ground ourselves in this truth, in this teaching, and in the faith of all the paths that follow the truth of principle. And we stand strong, and we stay wise, and we stay humble, and we stay loving. I breathe this. And I give gratitude. as my kneeling allows me to now drop my forehead to the ground in gratitude. We kiss the earth, the beloved mother, and know that all is well, all is evolving, and we are the good stewards, the channels of that truth. Thank you, God, for this moment of time together, expressing the power of the word, the power of love. I release this knowing it's already so, and together we say, and so it is. Thank you, Judy. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Reverend Sue. I really felt that at the core of my being, and I just say, and so it is, for everyone. Very powerful. Well, we've come to the point of our service where we normally do have the offering, and I would just like to remind everyone out there listening or watching that you can go to our website and contribute that way. You can also contribute based on our Facebook page, or you can mail, and we thank everyone that renewed their pledge to keep the center going during the pandemic, as well as those who provided a year-end donation. Very, very appreciated and very, very helpful. And we encourage everyone who is moved by these services to know that we are moving through this, and we will all be back together in this sanctuary. It'll be a full sanctuary, and we will have wonderful events. But in the meantime, we hang together as a community. We join the Zoom classes, the workshops, the various means, and we're looking for new and different ways to make this connection. So every contribution helps to keep this going and to know that we are survivors and we are making the right choice for this community and for ourselves. So thank you. Very, very much appreciated on behalf of the center. So we're going to close with another song by Dalton. And Judy, are you? So with Dalton. And so we really appreciate you both being here today, Judy and Dalton. Wonderful music. And then at the close of the song, Sue and I will come up and say goodbye.
My life flows on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, though far off hymn that hails a new creation. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? What though the darkness round me falls? I know the truth, it liveth. And what though the tempest round me roars? Songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? And when tyrants tremble sick with fear, and hear their death knells ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? In prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to them go winging. when friends by shame are undefiled. How can I keep from singing? Oh, my life flows on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, though far off hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, those freedom bells come ringing, since love is Lord of heaven and earth.
Thank you. That's one of my all-time favorite songs. And it made me have the vision. One of the most sorrowful things of 2020 is how the voices had to stop singing. And we miss that. We miss that connection. That's a vibration that comes from deep inside. So thank you so much for such a beautiful tribute to what we look forward to, because how can we go on without singing? So I sound depressed, but I'm just filled with a joy that is touched by tearful emotion of what we really have here. The gifts of Dalton and Judy showing up and sharing that with us is priceless. So have a beautiful week and enjoy contemplating some of those questions. Join us in classes. Just join us. We're right here. So.
And if you're looking for exercise, I know there's a lot of leaves out there that can be raked. But anyway, enjoy your day and enjoy your week, and look forward to seeing everybody soon.
Yeah. Bye-bye, everyone.